Hi guys, Ronnie here. As I've promised, today's video is going to be about tapering. So what is tapering? It's essentially the part of training that you do before your race to be as fit and fresh as possible and to be able to suffer and get yourself some good results. So first, what you need to do, and needless to say, having a power meter greatly helps with tapering and training in general. So in order for training and tapering in specific to be effective, you need to be able to measure your training stress score. And a good way to do this, of course, if you have a power meter, then any fitness-based app will calculate that. And you need to know basically two things. So fitness. What is fitness? Fitness is the average of the average training stress score of your last 40 days of, last 40 days you have done training or not. Fatigue, I have to be honest, I don't actually know how it is calculated, but it essentially takes a metric from your right data and calculates how hard this is on your body in terms of recovery. And then your form is basically your fatigue subtracted from your fitness. When you want to race and perform well, you want to have a very high fitness but a pretty low fatigue level, so you can actually push yourself really hard. So the first step before any racing is done is to actually take up your fitness level, really build that training stress up. As you can see, basically I've been doing this since December. So basically I've been taking my fitness from 60-ish to around 100 when my training block peaked. And then you really have something to taper from, because if you don't do any hard training beforehand, it's not going to be very effective. Then in the last period before your event, you need to do the type of training that has pretty low fatigue but keeps your fitness up. So essentially you can do this by cutting your intensity or cutting your duration, because you can achieve a training stress score by either having long durations but lower intensity, or shorter durations, higher intensity. Now road races are typically full of short, very intense efforts. So I think it's not too hard to believe that this actually works better. So what I do is I cut my duration a little bit, so the ride duration, and put in some really sharp efforts. If there's a chance of the race to end up in a sprint finish, I will also do some sprint training and also some big accelerations to be able to establish a breakaway and such. So you need to be, the legs need to be opened up the week before the race, not being too fatigued by these long 3, 4, 5 hour rides. This is not the time where you want to do those. This is where you want to really focus on these sharp efforts, but nothing too long. So up to 2.5 hours, I would say. So you don't really build up that fatigue level. But of course it depends on where your training stress score was beforehand. So, and then the last 3 days before the event itself are quite important. What I like to do is do a pretty easy ride 3 days before the event. 2 days before the event, I like to have a rest day. You can see that here. And then a short activation ride just 1 day before the race. Now, I've tried having an off day before the race itself, but it generally doesn't work very well because, I don't know, your legs just don't feel as good as they would with some activation efforts. Now then, the activation ride itself, what is it like? It's short, basically up to 1 hour in duration, 40 minutes to 1 hour. Z2 mainly, so very easy, but you really need some, again, some short, sharp efforts just to keep those legs circulating and get them started up. As for race warm-ups, I try to do a warm-up at least 15 or 10 to 15 minutes before every race. That really helps when it's pretty intense from the gun, and it's absolutely crucial for time trialing, but more on that later on. So as you can see, this week I have one race that's quite important to me and I want to be very fresh for it. So yeah, the weather was also quite bad. So I didn't have a rest day, but I had 4 days pretty easy with some intervals. Tomorrow I'm going to take a day off or just do some gravel riding or that sort of stuff, because that's not very intense and quite good fun and keeps your legs ticking over. And then the activation ride, as I've mentioned, on Saturday to be ready for Sunday. And you can see actually that my fitness level, even if I did completely nothing, which is not ideal, but it wouldn't drop really just by 4 points, but my fatigue level is going to drop dramatically, and hopefully that will enable me to go very hard on the race day itself. Okay, so this is the main idea behind tapering, so I hope you have found this useful. If you want to see more training and racing content, then I will be focusing on that this week, so stay tuned and subscribe to the channel if you want to see that. That's all for today, thanks for watching and see you next time.